Alright guys, what is going on? Welcome back to the channel. This is going to be your home for daily NBA and college hoops recaps. Breaking news from last night. Coach Greg Popovich becomes the third coach in NBA history to reach 1,300 games. Shout out to Coach Pop, man. He's been with the Spurs for the majority, if I believe all of his career. Played at Navy. I mean, just such a notable and respectable man. He's basically devoted his life to the NBA, and it's great to see him reach milestones like this. And he hasn't really shown signs of stopping anytime soon. And I think it's just crazy to see that we saw Popovich go from guys like David Robinson, Tim Duncan, Tony Parker. Now he's got a whole new crew and cast around him. So I think it's very crazy to see how he's sort of changed and rebounded from the league changing around him. And I'm just excited to see if he can hit 1,400, 1,500 games. I mean, it's a great milestone for Coach Pop, and shout out to the Spurs. After that, we saw the big news also having to do with the Spurs. LaMarcus Aldridge, who was bought out of his contract right before the trade deadline, was officially signed to the Nets last night. Let's talk about this. So the Nets are insane, okay? I can't believe people always bring up the idea when they're like, oh, well, the NBA vetoed Chris Paul to the Lakers, but they accepted this. I'm like, it's true. It is true, but I can't believe that the NBA lets things like this happen. The Nets roster now has KD, James Harden, LaMarcus Aldridge, Kyrie Irving, amongst other legitimate role players, okay? It is insane. This roster is unstoppable. Now, if everyone's healthy, obviously Kyrie hurt, KD hurt, Harden hurt, so a lot of guys for the Nets typically aren't playing, and they're still managing to somehow win a couple games here and there. But I mean, this roster got even better when it was already probably one of, if not the best rosters in the entire NBA. You could argue that the Lakers were a bit of a better roster overall, based on how much you put your importance on LeBron and AD, but still definitely the best roster in the East, if I'm being honest. Looking around, I mean, it is going to be crazy for this Nets team. They didn't even really need LaMarcus Aldridge, to be quite frank with you, but they got him. On top of that, Bradley Beal got hurt last night. This is going to be very interesting. He was ruled to be out with a right hip contusion, and there is no update as far as when he'll be back for sure. But that Wizards team deeply needs him because they're dwelling in the East, and if they really want to make a push come playoff time, come towards the end of the season, they got to have their guys healthy. So, Beal goes out. Again, ruled right hip contusion, so nothing too serious. Hip contusion, if you guys don't know, is basically a fancy word for, I guess, just like a big bruise, kind of. I've had contusions myself. They're painful, but it's not as bad as breaking a bone or anything. So that's good news for him. I'd give him, 3-4 days probably at that, but he'll be back to normal. But I mean, those are really the biggest storylines of last night. Not much really going on, to be honest with you. I mean, it was very much business as usual. We did see a lot of guys making their debuts with their new teams, including Nikola Vucevic, Al-Farouq Aminu. We saw guys like JJ Redick and whatnot. So that was important. And it was good to see guys sort of playing for their new teams and getting a glimpse at least of how they're going to perform down the line. Obviously these teams aren't completely gelled and playing at their full potential because they don't have as good chemistry as they would normally, given the circumstances of the trade deadline and whatnot. So give this a few weeks or something, and we could really kind of determine who won this trade deadline this year. But so far, it's looking pretty good for a lot of these new players. Let's get into the games last night. We had a total of about 9 games, it looks like. First off, we had the Chicago Bulls losing 104-120 to the San Antonio Spurs. Frustrating loss, especially because this Bulls roster, as of right now, in my opinion, is leagues better than the Spurs roster. But it was pretty clear to see. Number one, I thought the referees were a little bit biased towards San Antonio, to be quite frank with you. But on top of that, I mean, the Bulls didn't really look gelled, which is expected. I mean, Nikola Vucevic has been on the Bulls for, 3 days? He's not going to be fully intertwined into the offense. He's not going to really know what's going on exactly. So give him a couple more days, maybe a week or two with Billy Donovan, and I think we're going to start seeing the results that Bulls fans are hoping for across the league. But yeah, regardless, the Bulls get the loss 104-120. So that's what that was. Washington defeats the Pistons 106-92. The Pistons continue to demonstrate why they're probably the worst team in basketball. They're 2-8 in their last 10. Talk about a slump. Pretty rough for them. They moved to 12-33, still worst in the East. Washington, on the other hand, they are also 2-8 in their last 10, but they did have a win against Utah and now a win against Detroit. Hopefully, they can start turning things around. They're only 3 games outside of a playoff bracket appearance, so maybe they get in there. I really hope they do. I think it'd be interesting to see Westbrook and Beal match up in that playoff bracket against teams like Boston, Miami, and Indiana, maybe Chicago. So yeah, that's that. After that, we move on to New York and Milwaukee. Knicks take the win 102-96. Bucks starting to slump a little bit. They fell out of the 2 spot in the East earlier this week. Now they just got off of a loss against the Knicks, who are a 24-22 team. They're just above 500, and the Bucks are 29-16. Tough win for this Knicks team and a tough loss for the Milwaukee team. This was a really low-scoring game, to be honest with you, and there was a good amount of just defense being played. And I thought it was very interesting to see these 2 teams face off with one another. And I thought it was legitimately quite good. So yeah, tough game for Milwaukee, but regardless, New York gets the win. They're red hot with Julius Randle and his supporting cast. After that, we saw the Houston Rockets defeating the Minnesota Timberwolves 129-107. This was basically a dumpster fire game. The Rockets this year are terrible, 13-32. Minnesota is even worse, 11-35. So this game, no one was expecting a serious showdown. Let's be honest here; these teams are not good. But Houston, I guess, escapes with a larger margin of victory than I would have expected. But regardless, they get the win. Dallas 103, New Orleans 112 for our next game. Dallas gets another loss. Mavs not looking too great. They're 0-2 in their last 2-game losing streak. And but on the other hand, we see New Orleans with a good win right there. Zion had a game and a half. I believe he put up 39 points, had an amazing dunk last night, and he's starting to really he's coming back. I know he's dealt with injuries his whole career, but he's starting to really perform to his potential. Pelicans are still 20-25, which puts them 12th in the West, so he's going to need to really step it up, especially, they're behind teams like the Kings and the Warriors, who are starting to really pull together as well. So hopefully the Pelicans can get something going here, or else, like I said, they're just wasting Zion's career. After that, we have Boston 111-94 OKC. Celtics get a much-needed win against a failing Thunder team. Celtics, I believe, currently are 7th in the East. Yeah, 23-23, right around 500. They needed that win to stay above water. Celtics starting to actually turn around and play like a legitimately good team. I don't know how much longer they can keep this up for, but as of right now, they're not playing too bad. Coach Brad Stevens is gone, so there's that. But not too bad. Not too bad for this Boston team. They get that win against Oklahoma City. They're expected to win that game. That's games they need to win. After that, we saw the Utah Jazz continuing to display why they're the best team in the NBA, winning 126-110 to the Memphis Grizzlies. Not much I have to say for this. Utah, we know they're the best team in the NBA. They're playing out of their minds. Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, Joe Ingles, whoever you want to name it, they step up every night. They put on a show for these Utah fans, and they get that 16-point win over the Memphis Grizzlies. Memphis, not a great day for them. They move to 21-22, 9th in the West, right behind Dallas, right above Golden State. So they're right in that mediocrity threshold, and they want to get out of there if they want to have a productive season, to be honest, because their roster is not good enough to be in win-now mode, and it's not even bad enough to tank for. So they're just sort of they're floating in mediocrity, and that's not where you want to be. But the Jazz, expect to win. They're 756 is their winning percentage. That's insane. After that, we see the Los Angeles Clippers defeating the Philadelphia 76ers 122-112. Great game for this Clippers team, especially because Sixers 32-14, the best team in the East, only by 1 game, but regardless, still the best team in the East record-wise. I thought this really demonstrated the fact that, the Clippers are a good team regardless of what their record says. With the addition of Rondo, I didn't like that addition because I don't know if that's really what they needed. I don't know if he's going to be a great locker room presence for that Clippers team, but apparently and evidently it worked out for the first game. They moved to 31-16, Clippers that is. They're looking good. Last game of the day, we see the Sacramento Kings defeating the Cleveland Cavaliers 100-98. Cleveland was fresh off of a win against the Bulls, but they lose right here to the Kings. Kings, who are red hot, 4 wins in a row. I believe that is the second longest winning streak in the NBA. They're looking good. De'Aaron Fox has been looking like a star in recent games. They moved to 21-25, 457 winning percentage on the year, right outside of that play-in bracket. I really want the Kings to sneak in just for the sake of Sacramento, because I mean I'm deeply rooting for that Sacramento team. I want that league and that franchise to pull it around down there, and I really hope they can pull something together before the season concludes. Let's go to the standings though, guys. First place in the East, we have the Sixers, followed by the Nets, Bucks, Hornets, Knicks, and Hawks. The play-in bracket consists of, from 7 to 10, Celtics, Heat, Pacers, Bulls in that order, and your dwellers from 11th through 15th include the Raptors, Cavaliers, Wizards, Magic, and Pistons. In the West, your teams 1 through 6 are the Jazz, Suns, Clippers, Lakers, Nuggets, and Blazers in that order. Your play-in bracket teams are the Spurs, Mavs, Grizzlies, and Warriors, and your dwellers, ranked from 11th through 15th, are the Kings, Pelicans, Thunder, Rockets, and the NBA's worst, Timberwolves. Thank you guys for sticking around to the end of this video. If you like what you saw here, make sure to leave a like and subscribe, drop a comment down below. Make sure to tune in to future NBA recap videos. Have a nice day, guys. I'm out.